Hello and welcome to EPG ePadhshala. The paper is Victimology and Victim Justice. Today we'll look at Module 4 of the paper, which is Dark Figure and Victimization Survey. The learning objectives of this module would be to understand the meaning of the terms dark figure and victimization survey. The module will help the student understand the need for a victimization survey, the official statistics, and the factors affecting crime figures. The student would also understand what international crime surveys have done and the Indian National Crime Records Bureau as well. Now, let us focus on the figure on the screen. What do we see on this picture? It is an iceberg floating in the ocean, and what we see on top is just the tip of the iceberg. This would be the official crime statistics that are reflected in the crime records of most countries. Below the level of water, we see a large mass of the iceberg, which is the unreported crime. So, the reported figures of crime are just the tip of the iceberg. Below the level of water lies the dark figures of crime. Let's move on to see how we capture the official statistics. So now let's see how we get the official statistics reflecting the crime in India, which is actually just the tip of the iceberg in the figure we just saw. The National Crime Records Bureau. Here, the crime records are collected from the District Crime Records Bureau, which then moves on to the State Crime Records Bureau, and then the figures are consolidated at the National Crime Records Bureau. So, the concept of collecting crime-related data in India is restricted to the National Crime Records that publish official crime statistics, and this is done annually. Notwithstanding the fact that these data constitute a substantial effort and provide much needed information, they cannot be a solution for the dark figure of crime in India. This NCRB report that is released annually does not capture the unreported crime. The figures reflected in this report pertain to the records from the local police stations. Only the crimes that are reported where the FIR, the first information report, is lodged, these crimes alone are reflected in this data. So, the crimes in the NCRB records include the crimes in violation of the Indian Penal Code and the protective and preventive special and local laws. These IPC and the special and local laws mention various offences. The cases in which one is victimized are categorized under two broad sections, the IPC and the SLL. So, in India, the unreported crimes have not been captured. So, the dark figure of crime is large as far as the Indian subcontinent is concerned. So, the dark figure of crime is a term that was used by criminologists to describe the amount of unreported crime. There are two different types of information on crime statistics. First is the official statistics on crime and criminals produced by the state and its agencies. Second is the data generated from research on samples derived from official sources such as courts and prison. These compare the visible data to be the tip of the iceberg. So the concept of measuring crime in a systematic way can be traced to the early 19th century Europe and to the work of moral statisticians Gary and Catlett. Victim surveys and police data alone will not suffice for the assessment. Data from 52 countries show reporting rates to be 30 to 40%. The lowest reporting rates are found in least developed nations. So, victimization surveys are the best ways to determine the incidence and prevalence, but on the flip side, they are also costly to conduct and to update. Also, they are unlikely to capture fully certain crimes such as spouse assault, child abuse, sexual harassment at the workplace, elder abuse, and abuse of power, which are often the crimes that go unreported. For such crimes, the dark figure of unknown victimizations will remain large. Nonetheless, it is crucial to conduct victimization surveys of these special groups so that victim assistance response is appropriate in size and character. Having obtained the best possible estimates of victimization, the next step will be to determine accurately the financial, the medical, the psychological, and the other costs of victimization to the victims. Developed countries have various data systems that could help in determining levels of victimization. However, research suggests that even these data systems capture only a fraction of the full costs of crime to its victims. So, moving on to the official statistics and factors affecting recorded crime figures. The 1960s saw new theoretical perspectives on study of crime, which questioned the traditional approaches to crime data and led to new ways of the extent, nature, and distribution of crime and offenders. The quantification methods were of two types. One was the self-report study and the other was the victimization surveys. What the self-report study did was it involved asking people directly about their involvement in criminal behavior. Self-report studies not only indicated that offending was more widespread than as reported by the official data, but the characteristics of offenders were also quite different from the traditional view. The victimization survey involved asking samples of the public to recall crimes committed against them during a recent period. Victimization surveys were a latter development of self-report studies, appeared to provide for the first time a way of quantifying the extent and nature of the dark figure. The birth of victimization surveys took place in America and continued through national and local level surveys in other developed countries. Let's move to the picture on the screen. So this table shows the results of a international crime victim survey which captured the reasons why people did not report crimes. These were reasons pertaining to the police. So the reasons given were they thought that the police did not do enough. They also stated that the police were not interested. One of the other reasons was the police did not find the offender. They could not recover goods. The police gave no information. They were impolite. They were slow to arrive. And a small percentage said they did not know why they did not report the crime. So these crimes that were reflected in this table are theft, burglary, robbery, and sexual incidents. So the very important outcome of this International Crime Survey was to improve the services of the law enforcement. So countries across the globe could see where the loophole had to be plugged in terms of improving police services to the public. So a very important outcome of this survey would be the improvement in the services offered by the police in various countries. So let's move on from the outcome of an international study to a local study in the southern districts of Tamil Nadu. This study was among children. It tried to capture the unreported victimization that the children had experienced. So the picture on the screen clearly shows the different types of crimes that they were asked about. One was crime, one was caretaker abuse, one was peer and sibling abuse, one was sexual abuse, and last was the indirect victimization. The indirect victimization covered the violence that they saw. They were not victimized directly, but they experienced this victimization. So this was indirect victimization. So in this figure you can see the ones in blue. The blue ones are the ones that were not victimized. The red figures show the children who were victimized, and the red figures with the white background showed the ones who had reported. So we can clearly see how low the reporting percentage is among children. And this reporting was not to the law enforcement officers or to the formal system. It was to the parents, to the teachers, to their friends. So even reporting to the informal system was a challenge for these children. So this is how the dark figures of crime are increased. Moving on to sexual harassment at the workplace. This is another crime which is not captured by the National Crime Records Bureau because of the non-reporting behavior of the victims. This was another study that was conducted in the southern part of India. So the non-reporting behavior was most common among the victims because of the various reasons, like some of the victims said it would affect their marriage, some of them fear that the family or the husbands would suspect them, and some of them were advised by their co-workers not to lodge a complaint. And of course, the social stigma was another reason why they did not report crime. There was also the fear of losing the job and not wanting to approach the police station and having no support from others. These were the reasons stated by the victims on why they did not report sexual harassment at the workplace. So due to the non-reporting character of the victim, the sexual harassment crime does not come to light. The researchers termed this crime victimization as a dark figures of crime in the workplace and a noiseless crime in the workplace. Now let's move on to international crime victimization surveys again. Governments began to re-examine conventional law enforcement strategies and sought to supplement them. In 1987, a working group was set up in response to this need for a collaborative survey. Funded by the Ministry of Justice of the Netherlands, the first sweep of the ICVS, that is the International Crime Victimization Survey, took place in 1989. 14 countries took part in the survey. 11 forms of victimization were studied. It was reported that they had experienced one or more of the offences. They had studied where it had occurred, its consequences, if the police were involved, satisfaction with the police response, and if any victim assistance was provided. The ICVS project sought to fill the gap in adequate recording of offences by the police for purposes of comparing crime rates in different nations and to provide a crime index. The International Crime Victimization Survey is a standardized sample survey to look at the experience with crime and policing in a large number of nations. The second ICVS wave took place in 1992, and this included India, although samples were only from a single Indian city, that is Mumbai. Currently, the ICVS has progressed through 5 successful waves to reduce the dark figure of crime the world over. The last wave included 38 countries. The ICVS, while providing a measure of crime, does not provide details of victimization experienced by distinct populations. The surveys on victimization of children are very few, although few studies on victimization of children have been reported, like the one that we saw in the other figure. So, in conclusion, over the past decades, the empirical foundations of criminology have been strengthened by the application of quantitative research methods, perhaps most notably in dark figure studies, such as self-reported delinquency and crime and victimization surveys. Such surveys are now carried out regularly across the globe and have become a staple feature of modern criminology. The results of these studies have opened doors for a renaissance of comparative international criminology. More recently, victimization surveys have also attracted the attention of international organizations such as the UNODC, the UNDP, the ILO, and of INGOs such as Transparency International, World Justice Programme, and the Police Index. Obviously, the freshly agreed upon UN indicator of victimization by the physical, psychological, sexual violence poses major methodological challenges in terms of both in the formulation of questions and the appropriate interview mode. So, if the statistical authorities of the countries and the international non-governmental organizations are truly committed to measuring progress in implementing the sustainable developmental goals given by the UN, they will need to hire criminological expertise. So, criminological knowledge then is likely to be more in demand in the coming years than ever before. Thank you.